Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Oliver and I'm a former alcoholic and addict now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step recovery programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and other things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, cognitive behavioural therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, please go to www.rehab.melbourne. Now, I'm joined by co-host Alexis. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ollie. How are you?
Oh, there's a improvement in the audio quality here that I can hear. Well done. Good job.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, well, we got you a microphone and we sorted all that out.
Very appreciative. Thank you.
Oh, no, don't thank me. Thank Hills and Rangers Private for making this possible.
Thanks, Hills and Rangers.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, not only are they changing the lives of their clients, they're changing the lives of their staff and everybody involved as well, which is amazing because we are all in recovery and it is this big, it feels like a big family, so it's nice.
That's awesome. I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and me too. Now, what we are going to talk about is the Daily Reflections book for the reading for December the 3rd. Would you like to go ahead and read that?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Cool.
So today's reading is on in all our affairs. We tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 106. I find that carrying the message of recovery to other alcoholics is easy because it helps me to stay sober and it provides me with a sense of well-being about my own recovery. The hard part is practicing these principles in all of my affairs. It is important that I share the benefits I receive from Alcoholics Anonymous, especially at home. Doesn't my family deserve the same patience, tolerance, and understanding that I so readily give to the alcoholic? When reviewing my day, I try to ask, did I have a chance to be a friend today and miss it? Did I have a chance to rise above a nasty situation and avoid it? Did I have a chance to say that I'm sorry and refuse to? Just as I ask God for help with my alcoholism each day, I ask for help in extending my recovery to include all situations and all people.
Nice one.
Yeah, that is a good one. It's incredibly relevant today.
Yeah.
For me, in my own recovery journey.
And why is that?
Because, you know, we may be able to get clean, but it still takes a little while to also, you know, incorporate that program and these principles in all our affairs, really and truly. What for me, when it comes to my interpersonal relationships, and anywhere that I have an attachment, an emotional attachment, it's a very vulnerable area for me. And it's an area where I have to work diligently and where doing and taking my personal inventory benefits me the most, you know, like to be more open. My boyfriend and I had a disagreement this weekend and I didn't respond very spiritually. One might say.
Yeah, one might say. Yeah.
One might say.
You cracked it, basically. That's, you know.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I reacted very abrasively, and I felt like I was being attacked, and I felt like it was a personal insult, and it was something that was discrediting, who I am and what I brought to the relationship, when really, like, in all honesty and in hindsight, and from the self-reflection I've done over the last couple of days, all it needed to be was a calm conversation where I accepted how I had made him feel and left it at that, and we could have moved forward. And I blew it up into something much bigger than that.
You decided to get the shovel out and do some digging.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And now I am in the process of actually reviewing my behavior through a step 10. I, in fact, have my step work in front of me right now. And I've got to then, take a couple of days to give him some space and hopefully reconnect and make an amends. Yeah. And that's what we do. That's what we do when we are in recovery, and we have the opportunity to look at and reflect upon our behavior through not only what we learn in rehab, but also what we learn from our own program and the work that we do on ourselves. I'm very lucky and blessed to be in this position where I'll be able to do this work and then make an honest amends.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to make it up to him, that's for sure.
Well, that's brave of you to reveal to our listeners, and it's
sure
my
they can
story as
relate.
well. Well, look, maybe they can, maybe they can't. And the amends concept is step 10 from the 12 steps, and it's sort of it's very much that trying to heal the damage that we've caused and take responsibility for our actions, which I can tell you, when I was in active addiction, I didn't give my family the time of day to do that. It was all their fault. Everything was their fault. And I, instead of taking responsibility and carrying it's talking about carrying the message of recovery. I think we can probably go a bit broader than that and say, instead of just carrying the message of recovery, we're just living our lives in a not disastrous way. We don't necessarily have to carry a message. It's more just we're learning to live productive lives as human beings and not cause drama everywhere. So what it's like for my family now, I don't live with my family anymore, but I live with my girlfriend. And instead of what I used to be like, where I wasn't, I was that dramatic, disastrous person, I had no insight into what I was doing. I didn't take responsibility for my behavior, but today the only difference is the thing is I still make the same, a lot of the same mistakes that I did in active addiction. And they're things like, that impulsivity, that selfishness, that control freak behavior, and that fear of rejection, fear of failure. I sort of act out sometimes, but the difference is that I learn through making these mistakes. So the mistakes are still there, but I'm actually able to take responsibility for them and learn from them. And when I need to, I do make the amends in a way. Sometimes it's not as simple as waiting a few days and apologizing. Sometimes it's more looking at my behavior, saying, I did this, I was wrong, and I'm going to try not to do that anymore. No matter what it is. It may be, I can give an example. My schedule is quite full, and my girlfriend booked a holiday, and a family member from a long way away is coming down to see me, and I now have to reschedule the holiday. And I felt like I had absolutely no control over the situation. I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place, because I didn't want to let my girlfriend down and rebook the holiday, but I also have to see this relative, because they may not be around for me to see them next time when it suits me, for reasons of illness. So I had to, the way I actually behaved was I threw my hands up in the air and I got into a huff and I cracked it, and I said, well, you're going to be angry at me and my mum's going to be angry at me because I can't see this relative. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Me, sad. And really I snapped and I behaved in exactly the same way that I would have in active addiction. But the thing is, now that I realised that, and I was like, hang on, Oliver, don't be a pest, do something nice for someone else. So I said, look, honey, I'm going to pay the fee to rebook the holiday at a time that suits us, just for the rebooking fee, and I'll be able to see the relative, and we'll be able to have that nice weekend away that you bought me for my birthday. And that's how I do it today. So I still made the mistake, but I actually rectified it in a way, and you know what, hopefully I won't make that mistake again, but you know what, I probably will, but at least I'm accountable. Does that make sense?
That's the most important part. Yeah, that made absolute sense.
Yeah.
And it's so important to do these things, by like reflecting upon our behavior, and our spiritual and emotional state has to become a habit, so that we are able to move forward like that. We are able to find resolution within ourselves and our environments and our relationships. It's, it's a crucial part of this, being able to take everything into our affairs, practice those principles in our affairs.
Profound, very profound, Alexis. Nice one.
Oh, thank you.
And the people around us do deserve the same. They deserve that treatment. I mean, we deserve it ourselves, because we deserve to recover and have that proper, actual, good behaviour I don't know how do I articulate that, that not problematic behaviour. But the family also deserves it too, and it's not just about sort of maybe learning to do it in rehab. It's not just about practicing it in meetings, and when you leave, you help the addict that still suffers, or the alcoholic that still suffers. That's an important part of, I think, being in recovery, is helping others. And there's proof in that all the people at Hills and Ranges Private, the staff, are all in recovery, and we are getting together in this this incredible business to help and provide this massive, amazing transformation to the guests, to the clients. But it also has to go on at home, and that's where I think actually the real work is done, because it's like in meditation. It's one thing getting onto your yoga mat and being super mindful, but you've got to do it when you're sitting at the traffic lights in a traffic jam. You've got to do it when you're speaking to your family on the phone or in person, and you just, sometimes I just can't deal with my family, or just anything, whether it's an employer, whether it's a friend who's annoying me or something like that. It has to happen all the time, and that's where we do most of our sort of growth is when we can practice it in all our affairs, not just the ones we want to. Don't
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and then I think we're just gonna talk a bit more about that and about what it's like for families after the break.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Ranges Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
All right, you're back on the Recovery Cast with Oliver and Alexis, your hosts. And Alexis, we're just talking a little bit about, I think, we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about what it is like for the families of those who are in addiction. Now, or alcoholism, or whatever you want to call it. We don't necessarily cater just to one kind of listener. We cater to all of you, whether you are the families of someone who is suffering from that behavior of going through that substance abuse or use, or you are one of the people who's going through it, or you used to go through it and you are now in recovery. We sort of, we look after everybody on here. And I mean, for me, my family, they're overwhelmingly grateful for my change in behavior and my sort of, this upheaval in my life because I was very, very dysfunctional and unapproachable for years and years and years. And that's all well and good, but there are also, there is still that difficulty that I have. And some of it is actually the, some of it's not actually my fault. Some of it is just the fact that we are all human, and my family are also human beings, and they have these same issues that I have because we've had a similar experience. I've grown up in the same household as my sister. My mother raised me. She's got some stuff going on. I've got some stuff going on. It all came from probably the same place. Your family situation's different as well, and I think a lot of our listeners, some of them will be, this is what happens in substance sort of use and addiction and things like that, is that families get estranged and there's also, even when they're not estranged, there is still this massive difficulty of having to live with each other. What do you think?
For me personally, in my my family dynamic, so I grew up with a drug and alcohol addicted mother, as well as other family members, core family members, and the effect that had on me as a child, it left me feeling like both frustrated as well as like kind of desensitized to the use of alcohol and drugs. For me, smoking marijuana wasn't that big a deal when I was 13 years old because I had grown up watching my family, like my primary caregivers doing it in front of me, like I knew what a bong was, like before I really knew how to like write my, spell my name and write my address down. And I knew what those things were.
Well, and, for me, I had alcohol around growing up. Okay. It was very, very normal. And look, we're not here to talk about the mess per se. We're here to talk about the message. No, well, don't be sorry, because this is life. Life happens and things happen. But I think the important thing is what it said in the reading today. Just let me quickly have a look at it. It's about carrying that message to the family as well. And that doesn't mean that you have to drag your family members into a rehab or into a meeting, but I think it's like you've made a difference in your life. And you can well, it just means that you can take your own behavior and your own situation and be responsible for that and make and
that was a hard thing to understand as well. That I couldn't affect the way that my family were. I used to be very frustrated with it when I was a child, is what I think I was trying to say before, when I delved into the mess. And growing up, and then getting into recovery for my own self, having to then understand that I was powerless over those people. And even though I had found recovery and I had found such a restorative and wonderful thing to have in my life, to actually give me my life back and my love back, then knowing that I couldn't just take that and throw it at them and be like, here's recovery. Everyone's going to be okay. And we're going to have a wonderful connection and relationship now. That was really hard to accept.
It takes so much more.
But it's okay because I practice the spiritual principle of acceptance, and I know that I only have control over myself and my own life.
You've got to do you, and you've got to let them do them.
I now have better tools to be able to deal with them, especially the few members who I do speak to. I now have empathy for a couple of them,
and
who
the
are
boundaries.
Still very much,
the boundaries that we talked about in the previous episode. I have to talk about, I think, the way Hills and Rangers Private deals with families, because in a way, when I went into rehab, when I went into a leading private rehab in Melbourne, it wasn't just me that was going through this change. And I think it's really important because the reading is talking about, doesn't my family deserve the same? And the counselling and the level of care is offered to the family of the person who is getting the treatment as well. So they get the let's say in my circumstance, it would be my mum and my sister that would have a meeting with counsellors at Hills and Ranges Private and learn a little bit about what actually is happening to their loved one and what they need to expect, because getting into recovery is such a massive, massive change that my family really had to go through that change with me as well. And, I think, Alexis, your family will have noticed a change in you, even if they're not necessarily at the forefront of your life. It's a really big just change to have someone who was going through addiction to come out the other side. And how do we negotiate that? Because for me, I didn't know how to negotiate my recovery, and neither did my family. So we were both learning at the same time. And at Hills and Ranges Private, the counselling staff and the team help all parties involved to actually negotiate that, to say, all right, well, your loved one is getting treatment and they're going to come home from treatment, and it's going to be a few months at least of acclimatization to life without without those old behaviours of using, and without that merry-go-round of destruction that, in my experience, I was on for a long time. My mum had to learn how to do it. My sister had to learn how to do it at the same time that I had to learn how to do it. And, even in your experience with your boyfriend of what happened, having that argument, I guess, it is ongoing. Even after the first few months of recovery, we have to learn this stuff. And I think that's where it begins for me, in my experience, it began in rehab. I know you got clean in a different kind of institution, but yes. You start learning there, and you start learning when you get out, and the real work is actually getting done when you leave, which you need to prepare for, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I thought I could get clean and I could do my step work and I could connect with some peers and everything would be okay. But I then saw that, there was a lot more that I have to continue to do, and I have to develop a program to function healthily in my life. And I have to practice these principles in all of my affairs so that, I can be diligent in my recovery and...
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, it is an ongoing journey that more will be revealed, and we have to learn to do this stuff. And if you're listening out there, just hold on to hope and try and accept that help, and just be open to learning, one day at a time, that things will come up in our life. And look, I think that's pretty much all we got time for. But for the families, hold on to hope and support your loved one as best you can, and try and learn more. And if you want to learn more, jump on www.rehab.melbourne. The qualified staff at Hills and Ranges Private are there to offer the advice and answers that you probably, will be actually really good to hear. But until then, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.